And we are back, everybody. Episode 46 of the Jader and Kyle Show is here. We're coming to you guys again. Always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Jader Parama. What is going on, sir?
What up, dude? What up? Long day, man. And it's been an episode I've been looking very forward to.
Yes.
We'll get into our guests in a bit, man. But this has been a long time coming, so I'm really excited about tonight's episode. But I've been up since maybe 5:30 in the morning. And I'm pretty tired, but
you're saving lives, though. That's all that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me tell you, man. I had a couple crazy calls today. I actually had a fire call today, which was pretty exciting.
Did you get burned?
No, I mean I couldn't do anything. I wasn't suited up or anything like that. But we did get a fire call, and it was a power line that blew. And all I can do is kind of step back and watch the men go to work. So which was pretty cool. And then I had a very bad COVID call, so we had to completely suit up and transfer a COVID patient that wasn't feeling very well to the emergency room. So had a couple interesting. Usually I get I've gotten a lot of back pains and my foot hurts, things like that. It was a pretty exciting day, even though it was a long.
The reasons you call 911, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, man, and then that's it. That's pretty much I have to report. We had a pretty eventful weekend here at my place with the Mortal Kombat coming out. So we were able to review. I mean, not review that, but was able to see it. Obviously, with you, we saw it Thursday before it came out.
Yep.
We had some fun watching that movie, which we'll talk about maybe eventually later on the show. We'll see. We'll just throw it out in there.
We'll see where the show goes.
Exactly. And then we had a little event here at my house for the film. Had Chinese food.
Great detail.
Had a little bit of Steph kind of went all out and got a little section that said friendship, and we had like lollipops and things like that. And then we had something that kind of looked like intestines, if you will, and we had it was like Twizzlers and then sour string and all that stuff. So it was a lot of fun. A lot of some of my friends showed up, and then after that, we ended up watching the UFC fight. That
was rough, man.
Yeah, that was a rough one. Being from Miami, watching Masvidal and all that stuff. That was pretty rough, man. I
love Masvidal too, but man, that's a rough way to basically end your championship moment there. But that's not what we're talking about today. We actually have a big show today, guys. Really big show. It's going to be a fun show. We're talking Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is a movie that I feel like we were eventually going to get to on this podcast anyways, and here we are. And this is going to be a fun episode today. But we're not doing it alone. Jader, do you want to set up who we are joined by today?
Absolutely, man. I have two guys that I really, before this whole Schmodown thing, just somebody that I've always loved tuning into. I found them so funny. And one of them is actually a faction mate of mine of the Schmodown. And the other one is just some guy that I was able to hang out during my my live recording and just had me laughing my ass off with him. And between him and Kaiser, it was so funny. So without further ado, man, we have the movie guys on today. So thank you very much, guys, for tuning in, for showing up.
Hello.
Welcome to the show, guys. Paul Preston, Adam Witt on Jader and Kyle Show for the first time. Thank you for joining us, guys.
Pleasure to be here on the Paul and Adam Show.
It's already been rebranded.
It's already the takeover. Look at that.
Look at that, guys. Thank you for coming on the show. I hope you're excited to be here to talk about this film. Paul, you
talk about movies. I've twist our arm.
Yeah, the only thing I wish your listeners would do, and I have to chastise them for this, is a 5-way tie between all the movies we entered in for a vote. I would love to talk about all these movies we sent your way. But talk about this one. I mean, that's the one I would have picked too.
I was pushing for Everybody Wants Some. That's the one I wanted to talk about, but we'll get to that one day. I feel like once you put a Tarantino movie on the poll, it's going to get selected.
It's automatic. As soon as you gave me the list, I already knew it was going to win. I'm like, this is going to be annihilation, and I'm not talking that garbage.
I can tell you, since Everybody Wants Some came out, I listened to With the Window Down and my hand on the car, Rapper's Delight.
Yes.
Until I keep looping it until I get all the lyrics down because I gotta drive down. That's like my favorite scene in that whole movie. There's nothing to it, but it's all the joy and awesomeness you could possibly imagine in a movie.
That's such a good film,
What a hangout movie.
Oh God, this is the best.
It's perfect. There's like no plot to it. Just guys hanging out, having a good time. And you know what? That's all I need. And it's funny because I just watched that movie a couple weeks ago with Dazed and Confused back to back. And it's just like, they're just a perfect combo, almost like identical to each other. I know Linklater did them both. So, and American Graffiti is also on the poll too. It feels like the same type of movie as well. Just a hangout movie.
Well, which Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a hangout movie too, so it's kind of fun. I didn't realize the theme in our list.
Yes. And Elvis and Nixon essentially hung out in the White House.
They hung out.
That's the same thing. But no, guys. So what we like to do when we first get started in here and we have our guest on is we like just talk to you guys. So I want to know, how did the movie guys come about? Like, how did you guys get together and start what you guys are doing now today?
It's a confluence of two things. First of all, I was back in the days of Yahoo groups before Facebook even. I was just writing reviews and sharing it with my friends. And after a while, my wife at the time said, "Hey, look, you should make a website." So by 2009, I did. Cut to back in the 90s, Adam and I meet in Chicago studying comedy together at the Second City. Well, we never really studied together, but we were in Chicago at the same time, both studying, had similar friends, met up through outside projects outside of Second City itself, and decided we should go to all the movies together because we
did. And what do we decided that summer of 96, 97, the worst summer to do that, to go, let's see every movie. It was like Volcano and...
Yeah, some good one. Yeah, you had Dante's Peak, Volcano. You had
Speed 2 Cruise Control is the one that always stands out. We're like, let's go see that. Ugh.
You had The Rock, dude.
Yeah. So, by the way, we did, when Paul and I met. When they met, it was murder. When we met, we decided we're going to every single Friday night. We're going to see every summer blockbuster that summer. Again, was it 97, Paul? I'm thinking of.
97 was definitely a better year than 96.
I spin away from movie release dates.
Okay. But the funniest one was Speed 2 Cruise Control, because it was like we had already gone like 6 weeks and we'd seen every one. And Paul had to work late at a restaurant job. And I'm like working late. I get like a $15 cab over to his restaurant, pick him up, sweep him up. Another $10 cab ride over to the movie theater to see Speed 2 Cruise Control. We're like, what are we doing with our lives?
You're wondering how much we enjoy movies.
Right.
We made an effort for that. So
wow. Dude.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So then when it became time to do more than just reviews on this website, I thought we could expand it to all sorts of stuff. I combined like the writing and stuff I was doing and loving with digging back into the comedy archives. My wife Karen at the time was into, we went through all the Second City training courses together, pulled Adam out of the mothballs, and we started doing this stuff together on the website. And then other people came in and out and still do. But I think the guy who's been there, throughout is always Adam, because it's like he said, twist our arms to talk about movies. So, yeah. And then we met Christian and Mark with the Schmodown when we started podcasting in 2013. So that's how we got into that. And of course, Jader, why we know you now. So,
yeah. That's amazing, man. And you guys have had a hell of a run, man, in the Schmodown. You are definitely characters, and that everybody is just big fan, myself included. Like I said in the intro, when you guys were there before I was in the show, and I was just like, these fucking guys kick ass. Which, again, I thank Christian and Mark for that, because there's so many great personalities that they do bring onto the show that had it not been for them, I wouldn't have found. You know. So.
It is funny when Paul said, "Oh, by the way," because we hadn't talked to them in a while. We had a show before them at the Toad Hop Network, and they had to wait around and watch us clean up props and stuff because there was video on that show. But we hooked up with them all these years later, and Paul's like, "You're never going to believe what they're doing now," and he told us the premise of Schmodown. We're like, "Oh my god!" And you play characters, and it's like wrestling. Okay,
yeah.
How do we get in?
That's another thing Adam and I loved together back in the late 90s, early 2000s in Chicago was the Attitude Era in wrestling. So we fit right in. We're like, we'll bring you so many characters, you have to pick one.
We had a show called the Improv Wrestling
actually,
Show.
The last time I started watching wrestling again because of the Schmodown. But last I remember, when I was I was like in middle school when, the whole Attitude Era was around, and that's what I loved about it. And then now, obviously being in the Schmodown, I'm like, and everyone, there's a lot of the fans of the Schmodown are obviously wrestling fans. So I'm like, let me see what. And we have a show on the network called the Just Too Sweet Show, which they cover all the wrestling stuff. I've been following it lately, and I'm like, man, this, like, I don't know why I ever let it go. I thought, obviously when I reached that age in high school, and I was like, yeah, I'm too old for this shit. I don't want to keep watching.
But no,
like 30. I was like 30. But
it continues to be stellar entertainment, and you're drawn right back in.
No, it's great, man. And I was actually watching some of the WrestleMania highlights from, I think, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I'm like, why did I stop this, man? This is so great. I love it.
I can tell you why I stopped the Attitude Era. It just seemed like an influx of boring white dudes kind of came in. Honestly, I mean, you had like, Mick Foley and Austin and who were some of the ones that were out there? Of course, Taker and Kane. And they were all like just these huge personalities. Angle was so great, and The Rock. And then it kind of became like Batista and Randy Orton, Cena, and they were all kind of just like white guys with attitude. I'm like, is anybody here gonna like push me over the top? And they never did, so it kind of went away. I'd go back every once in a while, but you let me know if there's like an influx of really quality, crazy characters like Val Venus or Steven Richards, because that shit was fun back in the day.
Nice. Yeah, man.
No, I can't contribute to this conversation much. I'm glad you guys like wrestling. But let's jump into movies a little bit, guys. So, I mean, you are the movie guys. So, what do you guys? What are your favorite types of movies typically when you go to if you go to the theater and you have a bunch of different options in front of you as far as genre goes? Sci-fi, action, fantasy, whatever it may be. What do you guys typically go to?
I have a story for this. All right, I'm the see everything guy, and not everything, but I'm the see all. I like. Okay, that's not right. Let me word this differently. The original Movie Guys show called the Movie Showcast had a great cast. It had my wife Karen, who was into Bill Murray and dog movies. Mm-hmm. It had my friend Bart, who was all about Tom Cruise movies. It had Adam, who was into superhero stuff, and myself, who was into the awards fodder. It was a great array of
great mix. Yeah, absolutely.
So, right. So one day we were like, let's all go to the movies. So Adam and Bart and I all went to the movies. And I said, come on, let's go see The Reader. We got to see The Reader.
The Reader.
It's nominated for all these. Like, I don't necessarily.
Oh my gosh, it's a person. She can't read, and there's a Holocaust, and it's just got everything.
It's
right?
all the award checklist, that you want. Plus, it's nominated for all these Oscars. It had to be pretty good, right?
What do I suggest we see?
Punisher Warzone. I win though, right? So we go into the Reader.
Paul wins.
I win. Somehow I win, and we go into the Reader, and we're sitting there, and it's of course not.
It is what you think it is.
It's not good, and it's not Kate Winslet's best performance, and it's dreary and pretentious, and I'm just like, this is bad. And so Adam's like, I gotta go to the bathroom. So Adam goes to the bathroom. And they tell it from here, Adam, because it's a great adventure you had.
So I go to the bathroom and I realize we are right next to Punisher Warzone. The next theater is Punisher Warzone. So I look longingly up at the sign, and then I go to the bathroom. And as I'm coming back and realizing I'm about to walk back into this heartbreaking, terrible awfulness that's going on in the Reader, and just sad.
With awkward sex.
Awkward sex. And I'm like, I just need a hit of Punisher Warzone. Let me just check out one scene. Here's the scene I come into. You've all seen it, right?
Scene. Tell me it's the rooftop scene, dude.
It's the rooftop scene. I walk in, and I don't know the tone of the movie or anything. I just see parkour. I'm like, well, of course, parkours are in movies, whatever. And I assume the movie thinks it's being cool. I'm like, oh, of course, parkour is good. You're gonna make a movie this year with superheroes. You're gonna get some parkour in it. And the scene, the guy flipping off the rooftops and jumps up, and then suddenly a missile comes in and blows him into red mist. And then it cuts to the Punisher down the sidewalk with the giant rocket launcher, just throws it down on the ground and picks up his gun. I'm like, oh my god!
And then Adam goes,
"Did you drag him out? You had to drag him."
No. Adam does this, and he goes into the Reader.
Goes back to the Reader.
I would have texted Paul, and I'm like, "Hey, dude, I can't, man. I'm sorry. I just saw some badassery. You need to join me."
Well, I got to tell him that story afterwards, but
great story. I mean,
I walked into the Reader chuckling to myself, and they're like, "What's going on?"
Oh my god, dude.
That's the movie that should have won Oscars, right? It's Punisher.
But you could walk into any scene in Punisher Warzone, but the most exemplary scene is literally walked right in, and there it is, the Punisher Warzone scene.
I didn't catch that in the theater. I ended up watching it at home, and then I was pissed that I didn't see it in the theater because it was so great. It was great cheese, man. as I was watching, I actually jumped out of my seat in my couch on that shit. I was like, "What the fuck? What's going on?" Like,
so good.
And if you want to know what Adam's all about movie-wise, this is a good way to explain that as well. Adam is excited that there are 4 Punisher. Like, Adam loves just that there are 4 Punisher movies. Are they good? Are they bad? There are 4. So
I love a series.
Do I have that right? No, wait. There's 3. Sorry, 3 in the series.
There's 3 Punishers, but the one you're talking about, the one I said it for, was Step Up 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
And I go, oh my God, there's 5 of these. They tell one story. Now I'm in. Like, now I'm in. Now I got to watch all of them because
there's 5 of them. I'll go.
There's 5. I'll see anything. There's 5 of. Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to find a guy with a better attitude about a better positive attitude about movies than Adam Witt. He's like, Jason X. Of course, I got to see Jason X. How in the hell do they get from Camp Crystal Lake to space? I have to tune in to see the leap.
On a long enough timeline, every series ends up in space. Most of them don't go long enough. Indiana Jones, if there were 10 of them, he'd be in space by now. But they're just not a long enough timeline.
Fast and Furious is definitely going there right now.
Tom Cruise is in space. Fast and Furious is in space. Jason went to space. If they made 10 Goodwill Huntings, the 10th one, they would be in space.
Pursuit of Happiness.
There you go, man. Let me tell you that Warzone got overshadowed, obviously, by the other films. Okay, it came
snubbed by the Academy. You can say it.
Absolutely. That's why I was like, Iron Man, Dark Knight came out the same year. The winner was definitely Punisher. Warzone.
Overlooked.
And I'll tell you the kind of movies I love.
Best supporting for Dominic West.
Movies I love are just when the director has passion. I mean, there's too many director for hire movies out these days. So, I mean, just show me somebody who's fired up. I mean, that's why we're talking about the movie we're talking about today. I mean, there couldn't be a more director-driven movie in the last few years than this one. So that's what gets me hyped up for a film. You know, when it seems like it's obligatory studio churn out, you know, that doesn't do it for me. So, but that's my main thing.
More into movies. Well, I guess this is kind of about movies, but did you guys get to catch the Oscars this past Sunday? Like, did you see that train wreck at all?
Yeah. I didn't think it was that big a train wreck. I thought it was kind of cool, but I was outvoted.
Yep, I'm with Adam on this. The fact that they let the people do their speeches was glorious. I thought there's nothing more embarrassing than when you're playing off an artist when they're being celebrated for their artistry. That never happened.
Took all the pageantry and ceremony out of it, and it felt so intimate. They had it in a train station, like the cinematography of the thing with all the lights and everything, blooming lights. I mean, it looked like a 1950s movie. Everything we were seeing, it was so unconventional. The idea of no orchestra, there was DJ instead. All the really fun. Did I hear this? Really? Did I hear the theme song to the Electric Company? Yes. Yeah, I mean, there were so many odd choices, and I don't know why. It just felt really cool and intimate, and They made some choices that were even bigger departures in an already departure year. Obviously, the naming Best Picture, that should always be last. I mean, I think we all agree on that. Yeah. But I didn't find it to be a train wreck. I was like, it felt like they plucked something really beautiful out of, because one of the things that we love about movies is movies are basically a document of on-set failures. They couldn't get this location, so they shot here. The shark wouldn't work, so they shot the scene with Brody and his kid. You know what I mean? All this sort of, this. So in this year with the pandemic, and it's not going to be traditional anyway, and it's like to just take that and go, yeah, damn right we're not going to be traditional. We're going to be extra non-traditional. I just thought it was like, wow. I don't know. It seemed like a triumph to me. I took to Twitter afterwards, and I was like, "Oh, I guess everybody hated it but me."
It agrees with this.
Yeah. I missed clips. I wanted to see a few more clips of the performances.
That's one of my big takeaways.
What a bold choice!
Yeah,
it was, but they replaced it with the thing that they often do, plus a clip, which is have the presenter just really give a blow job to Laura Dern going, "Oh, LaKeith Stanfield, you're performing," like, "Oh, just stop that." Show the clip.
You're like, are we going to do this for every single nominee? Are we really going to just praise every single? Like, I mean, it's weird because you think to yourself, are we praising? Is this a show for movie fans, or is it a show for everyone to kind of gather into? And I feel like they really decided to lean on the movie fans here in a year where the movies weren't as popular, obviously because of the pandemic, as they could have been. But we were talking about director-driven movies, which is why I brought it up, because you have people like Chloe Zhao come out this year. And I felt like one of my favorite things was just to see David Fincher sitting at the Oscars, just knowing he's not going to win, but having a good time. I love that guy.
Did he turn into a cute old man or what? Like, he is going
really
to be
quick.
the cutest old man. I didn't see that coming. He's already got a big cherubic face. He's already starting to look like Mickey Rooney. I was like, oh my God, he's adorable.
Holy
David Fincher's adorable.
I was really hoping Lil Rel would go over to him during his little his segment. Like, hey, David, why don't you go dance to the butt?
Well, I got two comments about why they already had a problem going into the ceremony. The first is backloading. I complain about this every year. Hollywood has a backloading problem. They backload the awards movies into the very, very last month or weeks, right up to before the nominees get voted on, so they're fresh in the voters' minds. The problem with that, so many movies get lost in the shuffle, and none of them get to breathe. And as a viewer, you're tasked now with watching 40 movies in a month to catch up to all the awards fodder. And so when the nominees come out, you have no idea what they are. Adam, we love movies. You two guys, but we still can't watch them all. I watched The White Tiger last night, nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. And that movie is fantastic. Never got a chance beforehand, but that movie is awesome, and you should all see it. It's like insanely good. Yeah, oh, totally. But like no time, because I had like 30 other movies, and I was on a nominating committee this year, and I just had to watch like 50 movies in a month and a half, and that's one problem. And the what the hell was the other problem? I forget. Never mind.
Here's a question for the whole. Here's a question for the whole crew. Would you say this is the only Oscars presentation we've seen that is an art film? Itself is an art film. I feel like we watched an art film this year. I was like, wow, that
was Soderbergh's intent for sure.
Yeah. It started cool, like with Regina King just grabbing the Oscar and walking out really slowly out to the stage. I'm like, okay, we're in for something really neat here. And then they just started praising each other like crazy, and then so it kind of fell off the rails at that point. It wasn't interesting. And then Lil Rel comes out with like a half hour left in the show and just does trivia. I thought that was the best segment of the night, though. I had a really great time when he was doing that. Getting the little reunion for Get Out with Daniel Kaluuya and Lil Rel, I thought was really nice. And then Glenn Close stole the show. But then it's just the swing to go for Best Actor last with Chadwick Boseman, because you think it's going to be him. And then it goes to Anthony Hopkins, who's not even there. It just really backfires at that point. I think that's where they stumbled. They should have just left it for Best Picture at the end.
Well, question for you, Kyle, because we haven't really talked about this, but I know you. I haven't gotten around seeing The Father. You said you did, and you obviously saw Ma Rainey's. Do you think Hopkins deserved it? Because there's a lot of people are saying it wasn't a snub. Hopkins acted his ass off in the film.
No, well, the whole thing, of course, the entire process of the Oscars is weird, because in order to know who the best actor is, they'd all have to play the same role. But Hopkins, in my opinion, was my pick. He deserved that. Boseman's good. He's been better in other movies. I think the film is flawed for me because it just seems super stagey. And the TMI monologues he gets into in that movie, if this film were a reflection of real life, the people in the room with him would just be going, I got to get away from this guy. Why is he going on about all this crap? And that convention...
That was my aunt's complaint with the film as well. Yeah. And she saw the Father, and she was like, "I'd give it to Hopkins 9 out of 10 times." She said the same thing. I haven't seen either film, and she told me the same. She happened to see both of them, and she told me it's just there's something about that character that Boseman played that I just.
Also, nobody's likable in that movie. That's just a side note. Also, Hopkins was at his father's grave. He put a video on Twitter the next day where he gave a thank you, and he shouted out to Boseman too in a nice, respectful tone. But I thought his performance in the Father was heartbreaking, beautiful, and just and it's so boring to say he's great. It's like saying Streep is great. It's like, but you cannot deny it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen either of those movies. But just on paper, who do you, given a generic movie X and generic movie Y, one with Chadwick Boseman and one, who do you think gives the better performance? It's probably going to be Hopkins. Nothing against Chadwick Boseman, but that's nothing against any other batter that didn't make a Babe Ruth's records. He's a Babe Ruth actor. It's like he did probably hit it out of the park. I haven't seen it yet, but
I would say watch one night. Go ahead.
He did. He really. I think Hopkins gives one of the best performances we've seen in like the past 10 years. Like it's that great of a performance. He goes through so many different emotions in almost every single scene he's in, where he seems like he's really serious and then lost, and then the movie makes you feel lost for a time because you're watching this man go through memory loss. And I think that Hopkins just absolutely nails it. But the reason why I would have given it to Chadwick is I think Chadwick also delivers a dynamic performance, but also because knowing that it's his last, Hopkins already has an Oscar. He probably has a chance to get one again. I would have given it to Chadwick just because the posthumous Oscar, yes, I know it's supposed to go to Best Actor, the best of that year, but also when are we ever going to get to give Chadwick one again? You're not. And especially with the In Memoriam going so fast, it's like they didn't even have a chance to honor Chadwick at all. So it would have been nice to give him the award at the end. I would have personally voted for him, but Hopkins, like, it's not a snub because Hopkins absolutely delivers in this film 100%.
But if anybody ever, but if anybody ever wondered if there was some sort of coordination, if somebody knew how it was going to end, obviously they didn't. They set the whole thing up so that Chadwick Boseman is
exactly.
like, oh, well, we don't know. It's a secret. It's a secret. So it really is a secret.
Yeah, if you ever wonder if the Price Waterhouse Coopers guys are legit, yep.
They did not know.
Here's the other thing I remembered what I was going to say earlier. They also, back in 2008, The Dark Knight came out, and it got snubbed for Best Picture. So in 2009, they said, maybe we should expand from 5 to up to 10 nominees. That's why something like District 9 now is an Academy Award nominated Best Picture movie, because they made room for it. So every year, though, they should go to 10. This year, there were 8. Well, how about you fill in the last 2 with like Soul and The Invisible Man? Both Soul's a popular, Invisible Man was super popular, and a great genre piece, and a complete 180 twist on everything The Invisible Man has been before this one. So,
and great filmmaking.
Great filmmaking, a great lead performance. Fantastic. So, I mean,
that was the last movie I saw in theater, actually. It was
people might have gone, I'd go and watch that. So that would have included more of the popular movies like we're talking about, because that was the goal of having up to 10 nominees, but instead they just picked 8 that were not as popular.
It's so weird when you can have 10, but
they're changing that. Like next year, it's going to be they fill every single slot. I know they're like that's a rule that they are for sure changing.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they should.
Yeah.
Because it really reeks of and no others when you only do 8. You're like these 8 and no others were any good.
Yeah. I still say Bad Boys for Life should have gotten nominated for that. So
did that end up being the number 1 movie of the year? Did that end up being number 1? I know Sonic made a ton of money too, but that was it? Okay.
No, Bad Boys ended up being number 1.
Speaking of newer films, what are some of your favorites from 2021 so far?
Oh, I thought Nobody was awesome.
That's my number 1 right now. Dude.
Yeah, great movie.
Such a great time, dude. Such a great time.
Yeah, it got a little weird at the end for me, but overall, I mean, first of all, Odenkirk's commitment to the genre is admirable. And then the execution's fantastic. And these guys, the David Leitch, right, and Chad
Stahelski.
These guys are like the real deal next big thing. They're like whoever was, I guess the Wachowskis or whoever was making action before this, and their team of people who invented the bullet time and all that. This is a new breed for their Atomic Blondes and John Wicks and all that.
Oh my God.
Everything they do now and Nobody, they're hot shit. I'll watch everything they do.
I went completely blind. Kyle had seen it, I think, a couple weeks before me. I know he not on the fence about it, but he had like his issues. And then I saw
one problem, yeah.
And then I saw Paul. I saw that you posted that you saw it, and I happened to see it that same weekend. And I went blind. It just went in there. Like I have no idea what this movie's about. I just heard it's just the front cover with him getting like a bunch of fists in his face, and I was like, I'm down for this. This is a movie that I feel like I want to go back to the movies to go see. You know. And it did not disappoint. I had such a good time. I didn't even know who directed, who wrote it. I just knew it was Bob Odenkirk. I knew Christopher Lloyd was in it, and the RZA. That was it. That's all.
That's enough.
Yeah, it was enough to get my ass to the theater. So once it finished and I saw who wrote, direct, I was like, this makes so much sense. I'm like, all right, this is going to be the real deal. Because obviously it's had the same beats as a John Wick film. It's still doing it different, but it still had a lot of similarities to it. But
I'm a huge Howard Stern fan. Bob Odenkirk was on the Stern show, and And Adam, you need to hear it. It's great.
Oh yeah.
He's had 2 personally in his life home invasions. And so he found this script and he got behind it with his, money and helped produce it because he's like, I need to get in there and be the guy who, because you feel helpless. He's like, you just feel helpless and you can't do anything. But in his fantasy movie, he can beat the hell out of everybody. And he's like, because all he wants to do is find the guys who did it to him in real life and beat them to death. It's like he's a father, he's like, there's a whole lot going on. So, and you can see all that in the movie. It's again, there's a guy who's passionate about this is the direction I'm going to go. I'm going to train for 2.5 years. And when you see all that work, you can't deny its presence on the screen.
I'm so happy that Mr. Show's Bob Odenkirk is this national phenomenon, getting to do movies like this. I never ever saw that happening.
Yeah, and who knew the sketches he wrote on SNL? I mean, maybe you did, but man, I never knew he wrote Matt Foley and the grumpy old man that Dana Carvey used to do, and I knew he was an SNL writer, but he wrote some classic stuff, which is great.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and he left.
Jader, I'm surprised you didn't go Mortal Kombat.
Oh no, I had such a blast. I'm not gonna lie to you. No, I that movie's getting shitted on by so many, and I had such a.
What is the standard that people are holding Mortal Kombat movies to? This is the weird thing. People were like, it's not what I expected out of a Mortal Kombat movie. I mean, you've seen Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat Annihilation, right?
That's what I told everyone that was shitting on. I'm like, did you see Annihilation? Did you? I'm like, this is fucking great compared to what we got. And don't get me wrong, I love the '95 one. We reviewed '95 last week. Kyle had never seen it before. It was his first time watching. He goes, "This movie's fucking terrible. Like, how did you even like this?" I'm like, "Well, '95 is all. That's all we had. That's what I got used to. I've been a Mortal Kombat fan since the game came out. I begged my mom for that game, and I've been playing them ever since. So I'm a big fan of the lore. I'm fine when they change.
For that IP, movies are not their strong suit. The games, one thing.
Yeah, exactly. But everybody was complaining about the lore and the shit that they changed, and I'm like, I'm fine with that, man. I'm fine with that. Let them twist a little bit of it. It's okay. Not everything has to be fucking, exactly how the comic books are.
It's not what I'm accustomed to from Francis Ford Coppola. I mean, what? Yeah. What is the standard?
Precisely. No, everybody's like, piece of shit. I'm like, dude, it's a first-time director, first-time writer. Like, most of these actors have done like 1 or 2 things before. Give it a fucking break, man. Enjoy it for what it is. So that's my number 2 film.
I didn't see any of them, but I went to see this one because, again, movies are back, and I can go to the theater. I'm in, so I went to the theater and checked out Mortal Kombat. It's a good looking movie. I still have trouble sometimes with CGI blood. I wish they just blood pack the people.
And some of the dialogue is very, very
questionable. Well, the movie's dumb as a post. Half it doesn't make sense. But Adam,
how smart do you need it?
But you don't. I guess you don't. I don't know. Hiroyuki Sanada. That's all I have to say. Our hero, one of our favorites, is Scorpion in this, and he's great.
And he fucking murders it, dude.
Yeah, he does.
Awesome.
Yeah. He brings
I can't wait. What has to do with Scorpion and Sub-Zero was fantastic in that.
Cool. He brings gravitas. Just like he did to Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer back in the movie years ago.
Rudolph.
That's an old clip. That's funny.
Yeah, an old skit we did.
I'll give a quick shout out. I just saw, it comes out Friday. I just saw Tom Clancy's Without Remorse with Michael B. Jordan. Let me tell you, action movie, checks all the boxes. Revenge film, elite Navy SEAL, government conspiracy, Russia's involved, and he's on a war path. Checks every single box, guys. It's everything you need.
Those are good boxes.
Nice.
Yep. The only thing that would make it better is if he was the best of the best, but he got out of the business and then they brought him back in.
That and End of the World. There are Apocalypse. If you get one of those 2 things, then we're perfect. But no, it's really entertaining. Michael B. Jordan's great in it. There's anytime someone takes their shirt off in a prison, you're in for something good. Like they're ready to fight. There's always something good there. And so that's a good little moment in the film.
Clarify, it was a fight happening.
Yes, they're ready.
Clear it up, Kyle. Come on.
Yes,
that's
I just found out Taylor Sheridan wrote that. He's one of my favorite writers. He wrote Hell or High Water. Yeah, adapted it from obviously, but he wrote Hell or High Water for a listener who doesn't know, and of course Sicario and Wind River, which is a highly underrated kick-ass movie.
Wind River was kick-ass, man. Yeah. That was such a great
film. And I've only gotten to the pilot so far, but he also, of course, is behind Yellowstone, which a lot of people love on TV. So that made me extra excited. Not only am I a big Michael B. Jordan fan, and then of course all Clancy stuff is fun because it's complicated and it's interesting and it's a lot of stuff you don't know anything about. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I want to see it on the big screen. Unfortunately, it's an Amazon film, so it may not get to the big screen. I tried to get to a screening this Thursday, but it was sold out. So because that's what happens now when they fill the theater with 20% capacity.
Yeah. I love how Tom Clancy has to put his name in front of every single title. He's a part of.
Tom Clancy's, Bram Stoker's.
Tyler Perry's from the grave too, so it must be in his will. Yeah,
it has to be Tom Clancy's Without Remorse. You can't just call it Without Remorse. It's like Saban's Power Rangers. But let's jump into our movie of the week, guys. So when we asked you what movie do you guys want to cover on the show, you guys gave us 4 options. We talked about them already. Everybody wants American Graffiti, Elvis and Nixon, and then Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which ultimately
Night and Day. Don't forget about Night and Day. I fucking love
Night and Day. Yes, the only non-hangout movie, but still a great film.
Overlooked classic. Yeah,
doing great, June.
Doing great, June.
That's another one that checks off boxes. But no, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the movie that won the poll by far. Like people, it wasn't even close. So you put Tarantino on there, it's always going to win. What made you guys choose this film to put on the poll?
Well, I already led with that. It's just director driven, and this came out in a year with just so many sequels. I think Men in Black International came out. There was a Jumanji sequel that year, and they were just piling them on. The Pokemon movie came out, Detective Pikachu. There was just one after another, and suddenly in the middle of it all is this like fresh, original thing, from the guy who delivers fresh and original every single time. And he was just digging deep into, he wasn't adapting anything. He wasn't, it was just from Quentin Tarantino's crazy mind. And man, I rode with it. It was beautiful. And it was a slow burn too. I watched it and went, that was good. I watched it again and went, that was pretty good. I watched it again and went, this is a fucking masterpiece.
Masterpiece.
That's exactly how it went down with me as well. I mean, I reviewed it. Kyle, I saw it with you, right?
No, I actually didn't see it with you guys. I went to Key West, and there is like this old school Hollywood theater down there, and I got to see it. That what felt like the actual time, and theater that feels like the actual time we're in, and it just made the experience all that much better. I love Tarantino. Just first of all, the ... in the title is just perfect. Like Tarantino knows exactly what he's doing when it comes to this, and then you get into this era, and we know that he likes to rewrite history. We've seen it in Inglourious Bastards or something like Django Unchained. But in this film, it felt like it wasn't so in your face like his other films are. In this film, it feels like he's just appreciating. It's a love letter to that era of Hollywood. And that's what I really appreciated about this is Tarantino's got so much film knowledge. Like he'd be amazing on the Schmodown. But if he were like, he put all of his love into this film, and I really loved it about it. But Adam, we'll get to you now. Why do you love this film?
I love this film. Well, first of all, how lucky are we to be able to see these movies when they're released with Tarantino making a new movie? You look back on some movies that came out before we were able to go to movie theaters or appreciate it, and you're like, wow, what would it have been like to be able to watch this filmmaker in his prime at the time? And this is one of the great masters of cinema that forever is going to be put up with all the other movies that, I never saw Lawrence of Arabia during its original run, but I did get to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I did get to anticipate this and watch his career build, and the laser focused on the obsessions of Quentin Tarantino. We get to be so laser focused in that there's just so much joy in every single unconventional thing happening in this movie. I don't think there's a single conventional thing that you can make an analogy to any other movie that happens in this movie. It is just, and you're just watching, again, his love of the era, but then also things that are so playful, like, how long it takes Brad Pitt to drive home because he lives way out in the valley. So we cut through 3 or 4 different songs or whatever, all this playfulness and all of Tarantino's love of the era. But I'm also I like I'm fascinated by the Charles Manson story, and I know Quentin Tarantino is, and I am a huge goer when it was open of the New Beverly Cinema in Los Angeles here, which is owned and operated by Quentin Tarantino and programmed by Quentin Tarantino. So all I get to watch all of these movies that are referenced in this movie as well. But on the last year, or 2 years ago now, on the anniversary of Sharon Tate's death, he had he showed the movie that Margot Robbie watches in Once Upon a Time in the West, and a documentary on the Manson family on the anniversary of it. And and Quentin was there and talked a little bit. And so his obsession with that, and my own obsession with Charles Manson, I was like, I can't wait to see what he does with the Charles Manson story. And of course, this whole thing threw me for a loop. You couldn't see any of it coming in any way, but it delivered.
Jader, what were you expecting going into this film?
Kind of piggybacking both Paul and Adam. First time I saw this movie, what I was expecting was, Tarantino telling one hell of a story, but thinking it was about the Manson murders. So I was expecting it to be a complete bloodbath and just, kind of have him. I don't know why, because I've read so much on him, and I know he has this sort of interest in horror. He hasn't done one, but I know he's a big horror guy. So I was thinking, is this him teasing us that he's going to do something slightly like, what happens with Sharon Tate is, it's terrible. So I'm like, how is he going to handle that? I knew that, I know Tarantino is one that kind of wipes his ass with controversy. He knows that his films are gory, and we've seen countless interviews where they want to get to him they just kind of start picking at him with the whole blood and gore. He's just like, hey, these are my films, and this is how I make them. So going into this film and kind of not getting that until the very end. This is his most tamed film out of his whole filmography. At first, I don't want to say I was disappointed, because I wasn't, because I love the film, but I'm like, that was different. And I'm like, I don't know how I felt about that. On the ride home, so Steph, my girlfriend, loved it from the get. She actually loved the ending so much because she was like, it was genius, and she's not as big as film. I mean, she loves film, but not like deep like we are, right? So on the car ride home, I was overthinking. I'm like when I immediately got out of the movie, I was like, I liked it. There's some things that I feel like I didn't like much. And we got to see it, a couple days early for streaming, so I had to review it. But right when I started writing my review, I started reminiscing and thinking about all these other scenes, and I'm like, man, this was actually a really good film. So saw it again opening weekend. I left the theater in awe after I had already seen the film, but I knew what to expect. I'm like, man, this movie's pretty damn good. And again, another friend of mine didn't go see it, and I'm like, dude, I'll go with you again. I'll go watch it again. And when it was the third time, same thing as Paul said. It was, for me, it's a fucking masterpiece. I think it's crazy because I still have it in sort of mid-tier Tarantino, but those are just how good his movies are, that I still have it mid-tier. But it's like, again,
it's a very tough ranking, his movies.
Because and that's what everybody asks. As soon as you leave a Tarantino film, hey, was it as good as Pulp Fiction or Inglourious Basterds or Django?
Curse of Brilliance.
Yeah, where do you rank it? And I'm like, man, it's mid-tier, but I'm not. It's still like a 9 out of 10 for me, dude. His filmography is so great. But watching it over and over, and I revisited last night again, and I just love this film so much. So thank you guys for picking this one, by the way.
Well, you touched on how it just you're sitting on nothing until the violence at the end.
Yeah.
One of Tarantino's most brilliant filmmaking techniques is there's probably more anticipation of violence on screen than violence. If you're talking about the opening sequence of Inglourious Basterds, if you're talking about the tavern sequences in Inglourious Basterds, if you're talking about a Royale with cheese and you don't really know what's going on, and they stop and get guns, and then they start talking about pilots, and you're like, what's going on? And then they start talking about foot massages. You're like, what is going on? Then they get in the room, and they start talking about Big Kahunaberg. It's like, what's going? And then finally, all the violence, right? Yeah. So that happens all the time. Happened in Django Unchained as well.
Happens in this
that infamous scene where DiCaprio cut his hand.
Yeah.
So This is a whole movie of that.
That's what I was going to say. A whole movie.
Yeah, it's not
you're
the
waiting
scene like
for
this.
when is it going to happen, and you're looking at the date because he's putting dates throughout the film. And again, if you like the Manson, not like the Manson murder, but if you follow it,
you're a Manson head.
But you know when the murder will happen, and he specifically is putting dates, and I'm like, oh shit, okay, it's coming.
Oh, and then when it turns to time, you realize we're narrowing in. And what the one great trick, he does lots of great tricks in this, and again, nobody could see any of this movie coming from what we were thinking. Oh, Charles Manson, Quentin Tarantino. We don't expect all the Hollywood stuff. We don't expect the TV stuff. It's the career type stuff and talking spaghetti westerns. Nobody sees any of this coming. But when the times start popping up, we've now spent a good 2 hours of this movie loving these characters and spending time with them and getting to watch Sharon Tate watch her movie and forgetting that it's about Charles Manson. Forgetting because if you never saw a poster or a trailer for this, or no, if you just a trailer, if you never saw a trailer for this movie, you would not realize. Well, you once you see Sharon Tate, you would go, "Oh, that's right." But you wouldn't necessarily assume that this is a Manson movie. And then when it finally comes down to it, and they start putting up times and the sun goes down, you start dreading it because you're like, oh my God, I'm in love with this woman and this environment and this atmosphere, and it's going to be shattered, which is what happened in the 60s. It was the free love summer. It was this crest of a great wave, as Hunter S. Thompson said. And then suddenly the Manson murders made it so that anybody with long hair, everyone started locking their doors and mistrusting everybody, and we had to stay in Vietnam longer because Charles Manson was now all the hippies. So that dread that starts coming with the times as they start popping up is a fascinating filmmaking trick. He wields all of his techniques like an absolute master.
And
I feel like go ahead, Paul.
Oh, he shows us Manson briefly, to remind you that Spectre's just on the edges of the film, through the edges of my screen, the edges of the film, through the whole movie. So you're just waiting for it to rear its head again. And you've had, Fatty Arbuckle, you've had Lana Turner, you've had all these other scandals going on in Hollywood. But when 1969 comes, it's the end of innocence for Hollywood. And Manson's there to punch a hole in it, kill the piggies, and just wreck everything. There's a scene at the end of the movie where Cliff walks his dog, comes back in the house, closes the door, and I almost verbally said he didn't lock the door. And that's the last time that's ever going to happen again in Hollywood. And so it's just fascinating, the little details and his devotion to the era.
He's so smart. Like the biggest example of those subversion of, like, he subverted his actual techniques in this film. That the Spawn Ranch scene, the entire time you're thinking Brad Pitt's going to die. You're like, George is dead. He's going to walk in there and he's going to get murdered. And like, it's building up. George is asleep. This is his nap time. Don't go in there. I'm telling you. And then everything they said is true. Once he gets there,
it's all true.
Big relief. Yeah. Like, oh, wait, they were just being honest this entire time. These people seem different. But no, like, Tarantino builds up that dread the entire scene as Brad Pitt's even just driving there, and then he arrives at the ranch. And then when they go to get Austin Butler's character, Tex, you're thinking he's going to pull up at the last second and they're going to have a fight there in the middle, and they don't. No, he's driving away by the time he gets there. Tarantino knows you're expecting Brad Pitt to die, but then he doesn't. He gets away, and you're like, oh, wow, he really took that away from me. But I don't think this movie is even really about the Mansons. It's about, like, the death of the Hollywood star. Like, it's more DiCaprio's character, about how he's gone from a leading man to just the heavy who gets beat up in all these he's a villain in all these TV shows, and that's where Al Pacino's character comes into play, telling him that
at its heart, it's Singing in the Rain, which is the changeover from one type of Hollywood to another type of Hollywood, and to use, and people don't even think about this aspect of the Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski relationship, that Polanski represented a giant seismic shift, and luckily it's very represented in this movie. But these are the obsessions of Quentin Tarantino, and not ones that we think about. We go, oh, Roman Polanski, that was her husband, and whatever, and then his career and controversy and all that sort of stuff. But he represented a seismic shift for actors in 50s TV, and that's a really fascinating thing that sets the environment.
Absolutely, you fucking nailed it there, dude.
But let's jump. or Jader, you want to jump into the categories now? Give us a little chance to deep dive in some more things here.
I kind of didn't want to blow my wad in the categories, so go ahead. Saving up some good stuff for that.
So right away we have best scene, which is very difficult for this film to pick just one scene that's your favorite. But Paul, I'm going to start with you here. What is your pick for the best scene in this film?
Well, I didn't jump in on your conversation on the Spawn Ranch talk because that is my favorite scene, and that's Pitt's Oscar.
That was my pick.
I love going back to 2001 when somebody cast Ocean's 11 with Damon, Clooney, and Pitt. I'm like, these guys are awesome, and Damon already had an Oscar. I said these other guys are going to get Oscars. Sure enough, Clooney got 2, producing Argo and being in Syriana. Pitt got 2, being in this and producing 12 Years a Slave. So I just know these guys are great, and I was waiting for Pitt to get his acting Oscar, and this is it, man. When he just dissects that scene of what's going on, and he plays detective, so underplayed in that scene at Spawn Ranch. It's fascinating, and he never lets go any status. He just walks through demanding everybody does what he does without demanding it, and it's fascinating. I find that scene endlessly fascinating, and I'm like, that's Pitt's Oscar. He's so goddamn good in that scene because he's super handsome like Robert Redford. People have been saying that forever, but it's the acting and underplaying that wins the day for me for that. That's my favorite scene.
And Adam, you too?
The actual one of the fascinating actual things of history is the fact that the Manson family lived on a Western set. It looked like 50s TV every day of their lives that they were living on the Spawn Ranch. I find that so fascinating. And then knowing Tarantino's love of pop culture and Westerns and, the era that Spawn Ranch would have been shooting all kinds of stuff, that presenting that and the fact that he walks down the center of the town like a Western. He might as well put a gun on his hip the way it's shot as he's walking past all the Manson people as he goes up to the house. And this is our first real interaction with the Manson family. We've seen them on the street and stuff like that. And now he's in the belly of the beast. But we've also taken a sufficient amount of time to realize that Cliff Booth is a badass. He is a real... We see Steve McQueen early on in the movie almost by way of contrast. I know he sets the scene for Polanski, but seeing McQueen makes you realize, Tarantino didn't want to make a movie about Steve McQueen doing stuff. He had invented his own character, Cliff Booth, to be... And we realize, here he is in the belly of the beast, but he's not afraid. Nobody's going to frighten this guy. He's seen everything. And so he gets to have that great Western swagger. And I love he goes all the way up to that door and the Manson girl that's inside of there or whatever. And he goes, I'm coming inside. And this screen door ain't stopping me. And I was just like, wow, he commanded the situation more than I would expect anybody else. Certainly would mostly be played for horror for anybody else. That long walk up should be playing, but it's playing like a Western. And here he is, Mr. Western, not afraid of nothing. I love that scene. Oh my God.
And then when the tires popped and he's like, did you do this? He's like, that's my boss's car. And if he knows, then I'm going to get in a lot of trouble. He goes, fix it. It just throws up the stuff. Fix it.
It's such a badass moment, dude. Such a badass.
He ain't afraid of nothing. Nobody's going to beat Cliff Booth in a fight, and it's just we just enjoy being with him, going. And it's a sort of precursor for the joy we get at the Manson family being interrupted at the end, stopped at the end. Is that he got one up on the Manson family. He didn't run, turn tail, and wasn't afraid of these kids. That's the scene right there. That's a good one.
So, Jader, that's all 3 of our picks right there for best scene. Did you have anything different? I mean, there's so many great ones to choose from, but what's your pick?
I did, actually. Mine was a very simple scene, but I love the just the dynamic between Pitt and DiCaprio, and it's when they're watching the film, and they're just going back and forth talking to each other. I love that scene so much because I felt like, just hearing them, there I go. And things like it was just so great. They're back and forth. And it just reminded me of what I do with my friends, when we're watching some films.
Right. So
familiar. I just related to it so much. And I'm like, man, this is powerful stuff right here. And it's just a simple scene. But every time I watch it, it brings a smile from ear to ear. I had that written down in the obvious ending because that ending, we will talk about it in a little bit. But those are the two scenes that I had written. But my favorite scene of all time is honestly that. It was just so simple. Even in the theater, I'm like, this is so great. This is. I'm like, I relate to this so much. And I was watching a movie with some other guys that I had done a podcast with, and they're like, dude, they sound like it's just us discussing a film right now, and it's fantastic. So
yeah, they made a GIF of it, right? Because I think like so anytime somebody likes a point, they just wants to support somebody's point in a dumb conversation. Put the GIF up.
Yeah,
I love that moment too. Is when like DiCaprio's so into it and pointing at the screen, and Pitch is like, "Oh, there he is, like he's going along with it." That's my buddy right there. I'm gonna praise him along. That great scenes. I mean, I think there's also, like you said, the end. Julia Butters' introduction is great in this film. When DiCaprio just flips out in the trailer, the stud about how he messed up and everything. I think that's great. There's so many different things in here. But let's move on to best line. So I'm going to start with you, Jader, on this one. What's your pick for the best line in this?
So many great ones. It's just, but this is the tough thing about when you're reviewing Tarantino films, because his dialogue is just so on point. But I'm going to grab one from the very, very beginning of the film that it was in the trailer, but it still made me laugh just as hard when I saw it in the theater. And it's when, they're talking about what a stuntman does. And that's just a delivery by Pitt when he's like, oh, he's just, kind of carries his load. He's like, is that right, Cliff? Is that what you do? And he's like, carry his load? Sounds about right. That delivery is just so perfect.
I have made that a meme for any time I want to say something. Yeah, that's about right. I love that. I love that. That's my number 2 favorite line in the movie.
There you go.
Adam, I'm going to go to you here now. What is your pick for best line?
What is my favorite line? I didn't write that down before this, so
I can jump in here real quick.
That's fine.
I'm trying to think. Don't cry in front of the Mexicans. Maybe that's it.
That's just fucking hilarious. I fucking love that. It's so funny. It's so funny.
I'll just leave that one there, I guess, because that's a funny line. It's so casually tossed off too.
Yeah.
I got a funny one too. It's when they're at the Spawn Ranch and the one Manson girl is like, "Thank you for bringing our pussy back. We love our pussy." And Brad Pitt just goes, "We do." The way he delivers it is so subtle. Yes, we do. Paul, what's your number 1 pick?
Yeah, I do love. Yeah, that's about right. But
about right.
Number 1 is also Cliff at the very close to the end. He's getting right before he gets hauled off into the ambulance, and it's not an amazing line, but since I say it all the time, my girlfriend will attest, I say it all the time. Rick says, "Cliff, you're a good friend," and he goes, I try, and he's out. And then he shut the doors and he drives away. I say I try all the time. And so it's got to be my favorite line if I'm quoting it constantly. And absolutely. I made a meme for that too. I put I try.
No, I love it. Also, can we do something about the heat? It's a flamethrower, man. Like,
what's it? Anybody smell like a fried sauerkraut? Anybody want a fried sauerkraut?
Yeah, anybody order the fried sauerkraut?
Anybody order the fried? Yeah, that's a good one too.
Also, I mean, maybe Cliff is packing them on for me, but I love when he goes, "I remember your little white face, and you." We're on a horsey.
That's what I was going to say. He's like, I'm the devil.
It's high as fuck.
The devil's work. Yeah. He's like, nah, something dumber than that.
Yes. So good. Next category is casting what ifs. Jader, did you find any for this? Because I really couldn't find any casting what ifs. Tarantino usually gets who he wants.
Yeah, usually he's writing them with the idea, and he's like, hey, I'm getting this person. Believe it or not, there's one that I know the character that they were in talks to play, and there was one where it wasn't specified. So Macaulay Culkin actually auditioned for this film. He won't specify, according to the interview, he won't specify for what for, but it was such an embarrassment that he's like, I wouldn't have hired me either. Like, he's like, I know I didn't get the part. But, Tom Cruise was supposed to be Cliff Booth, apparently. I don't know if it was Tarantino's first choice or not, but he was definitely in talks. That was the one that I found, which I found interesting, to be completely honest with you. So
I wouldn't mind seeing that.
I had heard the voiceover was supposed to be Samuel L. Jackson instead of Kurt Russell, but then Jackson had like scheduling conflicts and couldn't do it. But I feel like that seems pretty accurate. Yeah.
The fun thing about Brad Pitt and Leo DiCaprio is that they're getting to play these big Hollywood guys, and they don't play. They've deliberately not played that type of person in their career to go for all these much more challenging roles. But in this, they're like, I mean, obviously DiCaprio was a bigger stud. Now he's kind of on the decline, and same thing with Cliff Booth. But they're just like, they're cut from Hollywood cloth. I mean, he picked two Hollywood icons. Now Tom Cruise would be that as well, but it just would feel a little different.
Well, that's what it is. That now that you said that, I remember reading the rest of the sentence. It was actually that. It was he was in talks, but Tarantino felt very strongly that the dynamic between Brad Pitt and DiCaprio would be just that much stronger. So he decided to go with the original choice. That's what it was. So
also, Tom Cruise doesn't look like DiCaprio. I feel like neither does Brad Pitt, but they do make it. They make it passable. To the point where like it's Brad Pitt.
The most fascinating what if in Tarantino's film career, I think, is Warren Beatty as Bill in Kill Bill was his original choice for that, and I believe wrote the script for Warren Beatty. Imagine that.
Well, we had Jeff Alterman in the chat. Apparently, Will Smith was supposed to be Django and Django Unchained, but
and Will Smith did not like the script whatsoever, and he turned it down. But that
and the script won an Oscar. All right, well,
and guess who Quentin Tarantino is not changing his script for? Anybody.
Anybody. No, the same thing. He said that, I mean, now that we're on the subject, Will Smith was supposed to be Neo.
Right.
And decided to do Wild Wild West, I think, if I'm not mistaken. That was the movie.
He regrets it. There's some actors out there who turned down some great projects. Like Downey Jr. was supposed to be in Spotlight and in Gravity and said no to both of them. Like, come on, man. Okay. That takes us to the Mahershala Ali Award for Best Sharpshooter. So this is the character who does the most in least amount of time. Obviously, for his work in Moonlight. Adam, you want to go first on this one?
Yeah. Now, see, there's one for this category and the next category. I probably could swap either one. I'll go ahead and give this one to Nicholas Hammond, the original TV Spider-Man.
Holy shit.
Who I grew up watching as my Spider-Man to the degree that there were hardly any of those movies. But Nicholas Hammond was a 1970s TV Spider-Man at the same time as the Hulk TV show. And I actually got to see the 1978 Spider-Man movie, the international release print at the New Beverly on the wide screen with an extra 15 minutes than the version I'd seen as I was a kid. So I had this great kind of run-in with Tarantino in some way in pop culture with Nicholas Hammond in the month that he was showing movies that influenced Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, never realizing that one of the reasons he's showing this is he's putting Nicholas Hammond, who you haven't seen movies in years. He was in Sound of Music as well as a little kid, I believe, right? So Nicholas Hammond as the director.
He's the director, yeah.
And I can't think of the director's name right now, but with the sweater and
Sam Wanamaker.
Sam Wanamaker. And boy, what a classic Hollywood archetype that he's playing. I feel like I've seen pictures of guys that dress just like this, and the type of I think the director of the Spider-Man TV movie was E.J. Swackhammer, who's a TV director, but that's such a director named Wanamaker and Swackhammer, and Nicholas Hammond just comes in and just kills it in this oddball character, and there's out. It's really great.
That scene is made even better by DiCaprio constantly smoking, coughing, and drinking coffee and sweating at an alarming pace, trying to do them all at the same time, listening to this guy. They play off each other so well.
Yeah, and he's giving him direction, and it's this convoluted direction, and it's this, it's an actor or a director trying to hep up the production, even though like he's this old guy that's don't try and get some hippie stuff in this movie. Come on. So yeah, TV Spider-Man, Nicholas Hammond.
For this one?
So it's like the best supporting act. Well, I talked about this the other day. If you ever saw Born on the 4th of July, Willem Dafoe kind of comes in. He's like, I'm going to own this movie, and then I'm going to give it back to you in like 10 minutes. And you're like, oh, so that's the kind of guy you're talking about, right?
Yeah, just in and out. Again, short amount of time, and just had an impact for you.
Yeah, I got to go with Mike Moe as Bruce Lee.
Oh,
because they rely on him. Like Tarantino leans on him. It's like, this is going to be mostly you. And I'm like, who is this guy? And he killed it. So like, kudos to him. Points for being that crazy Bruce Lee in that demented scene with him and Brad Pitt. I loved it.
Who saw that scene coming out of nowhere? That was just
you don't know what's
I mean, of course, Quentin Tarantino's obsessions all on screen, but that's so great.
Yeah, you just never know what's coming next. It's like, this now? Sure.
Jader, who you got?
I got Julia Butters, man, as Trudy Frazier. She murders the little bit of screen time that she has, going toe to toe with DiCaprio in a scene, and possibly like being the one that was better on screen. For me, she impressed the hell out of me. Every scene that she was in, I feel like she kills it. I almost gave it to Margaret Qualley, who plays. She's a girl from the Nice Guys, and she plays one of the Manson chicks. Pussycat.
She plays the one that tries to get a ride with which has one of my favorite lines actually from earlier. I can mention a favorite line is he says something about I ain't going to jail for I don't know the line.
The laws are trying to get me for a while now.
Right,
I ain't going to have to go to jail for no pootie tang.
yeah.
But
yeah, she's great.
But yeah, those were my two choices. Again, very small screen time, and I felt like they had a big impact in the film. But I had to give it to Julia Butters. She absolutely, she was just fantastic. It goes to show you, because we constantly have this argument on the show that sometimes, there's some kids that just suck on screen, like the Dumbo kids. And then they're like, oh, but they're just kids. And then we have Julia Butters or the cast from It, which crush. Right. So no excuse anymore, kids. Sorry. But
most kids you grade on the scale and you go, well, it's hard to act. They're young or whatever. But every once in a while, when you see a real good child performance like this one right here, you're like, oh, there doesn't need to be a scale. She's killing it. Absolutely.
Killing it. And going toe to toe with DiCaprio.
Yeah. Oh my God. And fearless.
Yeah. Kudos to her.
I need to look at I need to look at the grand scale of child actors, because if you do, you can see there is a shift. Like it used to be Newt stuck out as this awful thing in Aliens, or that kid from the Scorpion King just kind of sank the movie, and the movie leaning on him.
When Dakota Fanning was coming up, man,
but then like when you get into like Tom Holland and The Impossible, and now you see how great he's become, or the kids in Moonrise Kingdom, etc. There's a greater percentage that are good now than it used to be. So that's good to know. So
agreed.
But still some crap, but mostly good, as it used to be like all crap. It used to be like a kid, here comes a kid to ruin our action movie. Yeah.
But also, rarely do you get, Tarantino loves him a 12-minute scene. He loves the dialogue and how that stuff flows. To put a kid in that situation and have a 12-minute scene where that's a very rare thing to see a child actor do. It's often a lot of cutting to make sure they get their most clever moment and whatever to get that. But that's a real performance.
Impressive. Yep, absolutely. So that's my award for her. So.
I went with Brandy the dog. I thought the dog just absolutely crushes it in the two scenes that she's in. I mean, like she steals the show in that last scene where like the dog's just sitting there, and then just like, and the dog goes over, grabs the arm, and then we're all guys here. Like we feel it when the dog bites.
Oh, absolutely.
Bites sex in the crotch.
Again, it's one of the genius of Tarantino that we see when Cliff Booth first goes to his, to his home and the dog, and it's the wait and the wait and the wait. You hear the dog goes to eat. You don't see that play out ever again.
We don't think that's leading to anything.
Just like the fried sauerkraut with the and it again plays out 2 hours later into the film. Fucking genius, man. So yeah.
But we also get to cheer. So I mean, he's such a good filmmaker that he gives us a moment to cheer there when we know Brandy the dog can be controlled so easily, and the Manson people have broken in the house and they think they've got the upper hand, and we're just laughing because we realize, like, dude, that dog at any moment he can set that dog off.
We're anticipating. We're like, shit's gonna go down right now.
I mean, he sets the table throughout 2 hours of that movie just so we can knock everything down in the last half hour, 20 minutes.
I had a panic attack and a laughing fit at the same time during that final scene.
It was crazy. That was literally like I kept like Tarantino quoting, Maximus, "Are you not entertained?" Like this is what we came to see.
And think about this. Think about this. Back when everybody saw, Paul and I saw Pulp Fiction in the theater. I don't know if you guys did, but
I saw it the year it came out, but I had to wait for home video when my mom.
Okay. Yeah. But we knew there was this thing called Pulp Fiction, and everybody was enjoying it. And that's kind of all we knew. I think it's gangsters and something, and John Travolta's in it, and I haven't seen him in a thing in a while. And we've heard it's great, but we didn't know what was great about it. And how could you really describe what's great about Pulp Fiction? You just can't. You got to experience it. So in real time, sitting in the movie theater, the moment that John Travolta turns around with the gun to Marvin and starts to make the conversation, and everybody in that audience's eyes go down to the gun, and then the inevitable happens, the howls of laughter, but also the fact that he can still, like a light switch, do that now in a movie, which is what we're talking about here. Flip that switch of making us go "oh" and laugh and all. Yeah, it's so impressive.
That theater, kind of going back on what Kyle said. When we saw the screening, apparently Tarantino had rules for wherever they were screening the film, so they picked the oldest theater here in Miami, which is called the Olympia Theater, and that's where we saw it. And same thing, that theater. I mean, lines to try to get into that movie because again, the critics. We had our seats, but they were also giving on the radio a bunch. So it was so packed. I have never seen, at least it had been a while since, at least since like an adventure film or something like that, where there were so many people trying to get into this theater. And the Olympia is not a big theater at all. So I even told my girlfriend, like, we gotta rush because I know that if we don't show up and they're like, hey, you have to be here by 7:50, the movie starts at 8, they will give our seats away. So once we got there, that whole theater, same thing. It was like a light switch. How going crazy, cheering, clapping. It was it's such a powerful scene. So I know exactly. I can only imagine going back to see Pulp Fiction in the theater with that scene, just for the first time with somebody watching.
Very lucky to have been there at that cultural strike point where it just and everything just blew up. It was such a thing.
Crazy.
Our next category here is going to be the Bill Murray Award for Best Cameo. Tarantino's got so many of these and most of this movie, but this one he really decides to pile them all on. I'll go first here on this one. I think Bruce Dern is great in the one moment he's in. Just him waking up in the bed and just yelling at Brad Pitt, "I'm blind." How can the world be great? And he doesn't remember him at all. I think Bruce Dern, you don't expect to see Bruce Dern in this film. I think, and doesn't even announce that he was cast. And then he's just the old man laying in bed.
Yeah, I saw him in the opening credit. I'm like, oh man, it was just so many names being thrown at me during the credits. I'm like, this is gonna be fucking awesome.
Yes. Yeah. And then he's great in that one little moment. I love how he delivers the line "squeaky," like he has to add a little squeak to it. Squeaky. But
and everything he's saying there is what the real relationship was between Squeaky Fromm and George Spahn. They watched TV together. He was practically blind, and the girls had sex with this old man who wasn't getting any.
They got to watch FBI at 9:00. Don't come to George.
Oh yeah, Squeaky gets mad if I fall asleep.
Paul, I'll jump to you on this one now. Who's your pick for the Bill Murray Award for Best Cameo?
Well, it's a cast part again as opposed to like a cameo, but I do love Damian Lewis as Steve McQueen, and I just love the whole take on Steve McQueen, and he sets up the whole relationship that we need to know for the movie through the eyes of a disgruntled actor who couldn't get with Sharon Tate. It's just the best,
right? It's the best.
And he delivers it so just sort of like this. He's pointing out he's with him, and like it's just a bizarre sort of like, and it's a slow down. The rest of the party's like carousing around him, and just the fact that they chose to have him nice and slowly explain everything, and you could tell he's not happy because apparently Steve McQueen must be able to get anybody he wants. I thought that was well played and very well written and staged.
Yeah, I love how he just brings someone over and he's like, "Let me tell you a story," and he's inviting us in to tell us all about that. He's really good at that role. Jader, who do you got for this award?
Feet. the cameo should have been. Seeing the feet, I'm like, where is it? It's coming. It has to, you get and there it is with Pussycat on the dashboard. I'm like, there it is. I'm like, so feet is my pick for best. There's just so many great. I couldn't pick one, and I'm like, I'm gonna go with the
so many great toes.
Yeah, it's just so many great toes. But from Jackie Brown to the foot massage, fucking Dust Till Dawn, and Grindhouse. That Grindhouse one is the only one.
Death Proof.
The Death Proof one was the one that I was like, ugh. But yeah, okay, guys.
Adam, who you got for this?
Kurt Russell, baby. Kurt Russell. Can we be so blessed as to have 3 Quentin Tarantino movies with Kurt Russell in them? Oh my gosh, we can be. So yeah, I mean, and that has one of my favorite lines too. Is like, I don't dig him. And that whole subplot where he's trying to get Cliff apart as a stuntman on this show, and then is there a whole flashback in there or something? Or no, the whole thing is a flashback.
Yeah.
To the Cliff is on the rooftop, right? That's right. But
Fixing the TV.
and to throw in that Cliff may have killed his wife. Which is
oh my god!
I mean,
I've been holding back on that because I'm going to talk about it. In
this scene is the best.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like it's not a Hollywood thing. There's nobody, I cannot name a star right now that may or may not have killed their wife, but there are throughout history. There are a lot of things like this that are kind of strange. But I just love that Kurt Russell's the one that. That gets to be the bearer of that information and get the little cameo as the director is like, I don't dig him. Yeah.
And I love his interaction with his wife there when she's like, get the wardrobe, get your shit, and get right. I can handle this.
And he has like a harpoon gun, right? He's just holding it the whole time.
Yeah.
No, that's a great
too. Zoe, what's her name? Whatever.
Zoe Bell. Yeah.
Zoe Bell. Yeah.
Zoe Bell, yeah, and I mean, I think let's move on here to the Gary Oldman Everyone Award for Best Overacting. She's my overactor in this. I think she comes in and she knows exactly what she needs to do. Just yell at the top of her lungs and be super angry, and she crushes it. And like just in that small little moment, she's amazing. And her looking at her car to see the dent, and she's like, "Oh my god, what the fuck did you do to my car?"
Right. Oh god, yeah. Zoe Bell is the Everyone Award, isn't she?
Yeah, she's over the top, but it's great, and I love her for it. So she's my pick for Gary Oldman. I'm gonna go to you now, Jader. Who's your pick for this?
I had Zoe Bell, but I had a backup just in case, and it was actually Mike Moe. But again, it's more of a compliment. I just feel like the Bruce Lee was a little bit overdone, and I think that scene is so fantastic. But I felt like it was a little bit of overacting. Tarantino, obviously, we all know he got some shit for that scene by Bruce Lee's daughter being real upset about the way that her father was being portrayed on this film. But I felt like Mike Moe was excellent in this, but I felt like it was the overacting is what got him why the scene was so excellent. So it was Zoe Bell, but he was my backup just in case.
All right. Adam, I'm gonna go to you now. Who's your pick for this one?
I think I could have went with either of those actually, or maybe even some certain scenes with Margaret Qualley, but Al Pacino. Like, I mean, it's not. It's not. Now, it's unfair to give it the everyone award because this is the first time we've not seen Al Pacino act like that in 20 years. However, I really love what he's bringing to it. And as he tells the story, he goes, I put up a picture, I projected on the whole thing he lays out of like all the movies he watched about him. And then, I mean, he gets this great long monologue it ends it with saying, and start winning fucking fights.
Yeah, man.
I mean, it's not. It is funny to give the Everyone Award to Al Pacino for the first movie that he's not overacting in 20 years. But I really love how he overdoes it a little bit. And and then I'm watching this, and then,
Bing, bang, bop.
Bang, bang, boom, bop, bop. I love that stuff,
Maybe beat up by Batman and Robin.
Yeah,
that's a great moment.
Yeah, it's good. It starts throwing out all the names and stuff, and start Chuck Connors, and and it's time to make movies and start winning fucking fights. He really brings it down. Not really overacting, but
No, it was great.
Paul, who do you got for this one?
I don't. I love the acting in this movie. And once you put "Once Upon a Time" ... at the beginning of your movie, people can get away with more than they normally can. So your votes are all good, but they're also good. But the performances are also good within a genre set up by Tarantino in the title itself. I love this movie. I don't want to say anything bad about it this entire show.
That's fair. That's fair.
Very fair. So that brings us to the Steve Carell See You Next Tuesday award for the biggest dick in the movie that Jader decided, the category Jader decided to add when we did the way back, because obviously Steve Carell's so great in it, and that character is so terrible. So
He's a terrible person.
Just like one of my least favorite people in any movie is him in that film. So Paul, let's give you a shot on this one. Then, who is your pick for the Steve Carell See You Next Tuesday award?
Oh man. I don't know. This is a new category, and I didn't think about who was like the biggest jerk in it. But I mean, clearly you've got whoever the dude was who played Tex.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a unanimous pick, to be completely honest with you. The whole Manson family. So yeah, Tex is my pick as well.
But I got to look up what his name is because he deserves a shout out. God bless the
Austin
guy.
Butler.
Thank you, Austin Butler.
Yeah. He's playing Elvis in a Baz Luhrmann film that's coming out next year.
Tom Cruise.
Baz Luhrmann's doing an Elvis film? That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. That's where Tom Hanks got COVID from. Was when they were filming that movie down in New Zealand or whatever.
Playing Captain Tom.
Right? Oh, is he playing Colonel Tom?
Colonel Tom. Yeah.
Colonel Tom.
I deranked him. That's not unfair.
You imagine being the sort of personality that would say, "My name is now Colonel, and you have to call me that." I mean, I don't know. Maybe he was in the military, but I have a feeling Colonel Tom Parker was not. It just has to be called Colonel. Because that guy that managed that career that way did not command troops.
Okay, so Adam, do you have a pick for this one?
What is this again? The biggest dick in the movie, right?
Yeah.
Biggest dick in the movie.
I mean, it's easy to go to the Mansons. I'm pretty sure the Mansons are.
Yeah, it's easy to go to the Mansons. You could go Bruce Lee.
That was my.
I mean, I do love. I mean, look, all right. You know, filmmaking is making choices. There's not the point of movies is not to be realistic. In fact, I've often said realism is the lowest standard you can hold a movie to. I don't want a realistic movie. Why do you want one? And in fact, you don't want one. You claim, a lot of people will say, "Oh, that was very realistic." No, it was the movie's version of realism when it sucked you in. Handheld. Life isn't handheld camera. That's not realistic. But anyway, so I would say I just love how unrealistic his Bruce Lee is, walking around telling stories about this and that, and and I mean that's clearly not Bruce Lee. I agree with Bruce Lee's daughter. That's not what Bruce Lee was like. But for the purposes of that scene, what a fun way to play Bruce Lee, and Bruce Lee's daughter is talking about realism, but Tarantino is not trying to do a realistic Bruce Lee. It's no fun. He's got fantasy. Bruce Lee's character from Enter the Dragon is in that scene, is what's going on.
Yeah.
I am the best. That sort of thing. So
weapons.
Yeah, I love it. That's the Bruce Lee I want. I don't want the realistic Bruce Lee. I'm sure he was a normal, regular guy. Why do I want that in my Quentin Tarantino movie? I don't.
He was also my pick, but like you said, it's a fantasy. Like he's not the actual Bruce Lee; he's a pretend one. But that brings me to one of my other favorite lines.
He's played like a dick. I love it.
Exactly like a dick. And one of my favorite lines is when he's like, "My hands are registered as weapons. I get in a fight, I accidentally kill you, I go to jail." And Brad Pitt just sitting over there like, anyone accidentally kills anyone, they go to jail. It's called manslaughter.
Called manslaughter. Yeah, right. That might be my favorite line in the movie, actually. That's a good one.
I remember that was in the trailer, and that hit Bruce Lee, and that line stole the entire trailer when that first came out. There's just so much to love about this.
Quentin Tarantino cultural explosion going on. I love it. Let's just throw Bruce Lee in here.
I got a couple of quick, interesting details because I really want to get to our next two categories. So I feel like there's a lot to digest there. Real quick, Brad Pitt ad-libbed the line, "You're Rick fucking Dalton, don't you forget that," based on the line an actor told him the same thing when he was a budding actor in the early 90s. So I think that's a pretty cool thing. Margot Robbie wears some of Sharon Tate's real jewelry provided by Deborah Tate, which is really Margot's someone that we've not talked about much this entire
we
episode
haven't.
so far, and I feel like, well, let's get into our last two. I have one more big one, and that is this is cool if you're a movie fan. Is the Maltese Falcon scene in the bookstore visited by Sharon Tate is the real Maltese Falcon that is actually owned by Leonardo DiCaprio now.
What?
Oh
I
shit!
think it's interesting little movie detail right there. And obviously, Maltese Falcon's considered the greatest MacGuffin of all time. So I think that's pretty cool film history right there. Let's get into our last two categories. Apex Mountain. Apex Mountain is the point in someone's career where they're at the top. It doesn't get any better for them after this, but also this is their career peak. This is where they can basically do whatever they want. A lot of the people in this film are some of the top in Hollywood, like for a long time now. So I feel like there's so many you could choose from, and I think it's interesting to digest some of these people and decide who is at the top of their career or what is their apex. So I'm going to start with you, Paul, on this one. Paul, did you have a pick for anybody for this film to be their apex mountain?
Everyone's firing on all cylinders here, and those two leads, of course, just refuse to coast, which is beautiful. Mm-hmm. So I had originally picked Mike Moe as well because maybe he peaked early, but I don't know what he's from. But suddenly he's like, "Whoa, who is this dude?" Well, it didn't get any better than this. And my challenge to him now is prove me wrong. I would love to see an uphill trajectory to a career that starts with this.
Yeah,
and I just have to shout something else out here. I just want to shout something else out here to our friend from the Schmodown, Kevin Smets. I made this and sent him this meme when he got the news about his cancer. You're Kevin fucking Smets, and don't you forget it.
God fucking damn. Awesome. That is awesome, dude.
Awesome.
Fuck yeah, dude.
That's great.
Jader, do you have a pick for this?
I don't. I couldn't pick one. Actually, Paul's kind of on the money there, but I obviously went for thinking, the bigger actors in the film, and I feel like it's not DiCaprio's best. Brad Pitt. I love
there's an argument for Brad Pitt in this movie.
Yeah, you can make an argument for Brad Pitt. But again, I have this thing with Lieutenant Aldo Rain, which is obviously in the Tarantino world, and I love that character so much as I probably love Cliff Booth. So that's probably why I don't have him just there yet. Margot Robbie, I don't feel like it's her best performance. Emile Hirsch, I'm going down to IMDb. I couldn't find anybody, to be honest with you. So this is the one category that I actually have blank.
Yeah, I think I'd just say it's an ensemble apex in some ways because Tarantino's worked with DiCaprio before, he's worked with Brad Pitt before, but as this ensemble that he's started working with these actors and Bruce Dern, and so the ensemble, this is a good apex for this collaboration. Really, it's not Tarantino's apex. Could be, but probably not. It's and Brad Pitt and Leo have had such long careers, but this is a different Leo and Brad, and under Quentin Tarantino and what they enjoy doing, and so there is an apex here of this group. I think the ensemble.
So I think there's an argument to be made here for Brad Pitt, and here's why. He's been at the top for such a long time at this point, from I'd say probably the 90s all the way till today. He's just been firing on all cylinders at the top of his game. And he went from famous actor to legendary actor to great producer. Like, he's doing so many different things. And this is the film that finally got him his acting Oscar. And I feel like when we look back at his career, yes, there's so many great movies and great performances that he's done, but how many characters can we name by character name? Right. I feel like at the end of this, Cliff Booth is going to be... What's that?
Vanisher.
Yeah, I really feel like Cliff Booth is going to be one that I feel like we just remember after his career's over. Cliff Booth, like you said, his his Inglourious Basterds character.
Aldo Gorlami.
There are what was the in Inglourious Basterds? Margaretti. Yeah, that's in this film. Did you guys notice that?
Antonio Margaretti. Yes, of course.
Antonio Margaretti.
That was excellent. That was an excellent callback, dude.
So I feel like Brad Pitt, there might be an argument here for Brad Pitt this might be his apex once everything's all said and done. This is as cool as Brad Pitt can possibly get as any character, I feel like. So he got to take his shirt off. He got to beat Bruce Lee in a fight. He got to take down the Manson murderers. I
think you're making a good point here.
And then Oscar confirmed your thing. So it's definitely a great point. I mean, Benjamin Button, Billy Bean, and whoever he was in 12 Monkeys, he gave it a go, but this was clearly the win. So that's apex. I mean, an Oscar win is an apex, I think. So unless he wins another one.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to ask you guys, what do you think is Tarantino's?
Well,
it depends on the day that you ask me, dude.
I think he says it at the end of the film. This just might be my masterpiece.
Yeah, man. See,
although you can't deny the ground-changing, world-changing, and shifting power of Pulp Fiction. But
that's what I'm saying. So for me, those are my top two. It's between Inglourious Basterds and Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction, for the most part, is usually when they tell me what's your favorite Tarantino, I usually say it's Pulp Fiction. But then I'll watch Inglourious Basterds. I'm like, man, this might be it. This might be it for me. So it always balances back and forth between those two films.
But you can't say his apex was Pulp Fiction because that means it's been all downhill since.
Yeah,
you know?
I don't think that's his. Yeah, goddamn, you're right, dude.
I mean, the fascinating thing about Tarantino is having peaked that quickly. What then does he do? And for example, I think Pulp Fiction was extremely misunderstood in some ways to what he was doing, because the next movie he did was a crime movie. But then as he didn't do crime movies and people were like, well, what is Tarantino trying to do with this? Or what is he trying to do with that? And I think it really occurred to me during Inglourious Basterds, in the scene with the cards on the heads, the absolute Hitchcockian suspense in that scene. I was like, wow, this is really different for Tarantino. And then I walked out of the theater and I was like, no, it's not. That is every scene he's ever done in some way, you know? So
that's my favorite. That's my favorite scene in that movie. For when we future Inglourious Basterds on.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that scene, and I remember in that theater, it was just so tense, man. And I'm sorry for the vulgarity here, but my asshole was puckered up the whole time. I'm like watching this movie, and I'm like, what is going to happen? And then one scene, like, bah, 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 everything starts going down. I'm like, what just happened? And
it is such a synthesis of Quentin Tarantino. And then he kills Hitler with a movie.
Yes.
I mean, it's
I shit you not. I shit you not. I was leaving the theater opening night when this movie came out, and the girl behind me goes, I didn't know that was the way Hitler died.
Awesome.
Oh, that was so great. But so apex wise, I don't know. That's actually a pretty good argument, Kyle. I still think Aldo Rain is probably it for me. Again, spoiler. But your argument is really valid, and and Oscar says so as well.
I'll give you the exact frame that Tarantino peaked at. It is the shot of the laughing woman in the smoke of the projector screen. When I saw that, it blew my mind because of all the symbolism behind that this is how they're killing Nazis, and this is the film and synthesis and this whole idea. And I was like, that is absolutely, it is almost impossible to create that indelible, a classic artistic image from cinema. And that's just such a home run. I'm like, that's got to be the apex right there. That very shot. It's like that. You got to be a master to do that, to create that, to build up to something like that. It's amazing.
Amen.
Yeah.
All right, guys. One final category. Who won the movie? So when we walk out of this, when you go home and you're thinking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, who comes out on top? Adam, let's start with you here.
Spaghetti Westerns won this movie. I'll just throw out something, that he decided to go, once again, another great Tarantino obsession. The fact that he can go this deep into his obsession. And I've watched all this stuff at the New Beverly, all of these spaghetti Westerns and all of the Italian polizietti, the police films and Italian horror films. The fact that he goes and has that career, and that is a plot line in a movie I'm watching. I mean, it's it's kind of wonderful, and you see those clips and then how that fits into how a career goes. I mean, we watched Clint Eastwood do that, come out of Western TV and go do these movies and got super famous, and a lot of people went and did that. In fact, the parking space, the sign that the parking space that he parks his car at is a sideways face of Navajo Joe, because once Clint Eastwood went and did it, now Burt Reynolds went and did his spaghetti western, and all that sort of stuff. So I think spaghetti westerns are throughout this whole thing. And of course, the walk on Spawn Ranch is a western scene. As Tarantino said, I've always wanted to make a western. Instead, I just keep making these fake knockoff westerns, because he thinks Inglourious Bastards is a fake western, and that his other movies, none of them are quite westerns. They're these Western fusions, and he feels like he's never made a real Western, although maybe Hateful Eight, maybe now he does feel that is one. Although, that is such an alt-Western. I'm going to bring back 75mm Vista and set it all in one location like Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
It's an alt.
Paul, who's your pick for this? Who won the movie?
All right, my closing argument. The winner of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is Sharon Tate. We talked, and everyone talks when they talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, about how much Quentin Tarantino loves this era, and he does. He loves this era, and he loves her. And I have no fact base in this, but I think he made Once Upon a Time in Hollywood to go back and save her life and kill with violent, extreme prejudice the people who would do her harm. So when he, not just a can to the face and a dog to the smashing her into the wall repeatedly, and the flamethrower,
and it feels so good.
We didn't talk about one of the best lines is when the girl smashes through the window and DiCaprio goes, "What the fuck?" Like, it's the funniest. It's like the funniest scene all year. When because who's expecting that to come through the living room? He's got his headphones on, learning his stupid lines for Lancet. And then they just absolutely destroy the hippies, right? He said, "Cliff, you're a good friend. I try." And off he goes. And then what do we get? Sharon Tate's voice in the hello? She lived. She lived. Yeah. Wait a minute. Yeah. We're forgetting through all this stuff that there's these murderers that we vanquished, and we're like, haha, yeah, we turned the tables on them. But also, Sharon Tate got to survive. And he gets to go into the house and enjoy the party with her. And he saved her. And if that's really what happened here, and that's my strong theory, it may be the most romantic movie ever made.
Oh, wow. Good. Here.
Paul just won the show.
Awesome.
In my opinion.
Paul won the show right there.
Paul won the show.
That's such a great point too, because I know someone who cried at the end of this movie, because one of the most beautiful things is Margot Robbie's performance as Sharon Tate. Like, just knowing that how happy she was to see herself on the screen in movies, when we get to see her just watching herself in The Wrecking Crew and sitting next to the poster and just being so proud to be in the movie. And that was all just taken away. Who knows how great of an actress she could have been, what kind of career she could have had. And it was all just taken away by this Manson family. And then Tarantino saves her in this film. It's like such a beautiful moment to really think about. And so I think, Paul, that's such a great pick. Jader, you want to try to top that?
No, I can't, bro.
Wait, well, let me just say also, a lot of people give Margot Robbie's performance a hard time because she just sort of was dancing and twirling, and then she did more dancing and all this stuff, went to a movie. But yeah, that's all she did. And she did a lot of it for Tarantino to just show you, look at how vibrant and lovely and wonderful she was. And, fuck these guys for what they did to her, and I'm going to show you how they should have been treated back in the day.
The other thing, and I don't think Quentin Tarantino said this in any interviews, but it's certainly my take on it, is I'm not going to try and tell you more about her than I know. I watch her, and I got to see The Wrecking Crew at the New Beverly with Tarantino in the audience, and he spoke before it about her in this movie. And to watch, for the number of filmmakers that love movies and make movies because they love movies, nobody loves movies more than Quentin Tarantino. But how it's so rare that you watch someone sit in a movie theater in a movie at all, much less someone sitting in a theater watching themselves. That's Quentin Tarantino in that scene. That's not Sharon Tate. He's not presuming to know anything. She probably never did that. She might not have ever done that. But watching her up there, enamored, that's Quentin. And so he's He's just giving his version of Sharon Tate. It's great. It's a masterpiece. And then he puts Once Upon a Time up after
right
this fairy tale ending where he saves. Oh, and you forget that's the title of the movie, and then it comes up right. Once Upon a Time. This has been a fairy tale. It's so good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, my pick was Brad Pitt. I thought Brad Pitt won the film, but I don't even want to talk about it.
Killing the moment. You're killing the moment. Stand down.
That's it.
So far, we're all right.
I got the room very clear, and we're going to end it like this.
So far, we're all right.
Yeah.
Well, we won.
Yes. Well, yeah.
We won this podcast. I think we won this podcast.
I've said that. I think I said it in Pulp Fiction. They're like, who won the film? I'm like, the audience did. So I didn't want to use that again, but I feel like we really did. And again, it just goes to show you what a great filmmaker Tarantino is. And just, again, going back to what Adam said, to be able, I mean, the first 3 films of his are the only ones I didn't get to see in theater because of my age. But Kill Bill and on opening night is when I go. It's an event. Every time Tarantino announces something, it's an event. It's something to look forward to. As cinephiles, as someone that, again, obsessed with film and all that, you just take everything and you're always, again, it always goes back to the comparison. Is he going to top this? And maybe he doesn't, like he did it in this one. This, again, wasn't his best film, but goddamn, is this still a masterpiece amongst his, this is his 9th film. Actual film and I had a thing. It's crazy. The only film that I really didn't like of his was Jackie Brown, and that's because I saw it at a very, very young age.
Yeah.
Where I just didn't get it. I felt like it was so boring. And during COVID last year, when I got I had just gotten selected for the Schmodown, I started just watching everything in sight. So I did my rewatch of Tarantino films, and I absolutely fell in love with Jackie Brown.
Yeah.
It's such a, so I don't feel like he has a bad film.
Jackie Brown is better now, having seen other Quentin Tarantino films and all the aspects that he puts in it. Yeah, Jackie Brown became so much better the second and third time I saw it.
Yeah. So
I think Jackie Brown's a pretty great film. I don't know where you would rank it in his films, but it's definitely one that I feel like is the most overlooked out of them all, and it really shouldn't, because it's just as good as some of his other mid-tier to higher tier films.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Death Proof is the most overlooked. Death Proof.
and it probably should be the most overlooked.
Oh, I disagree. Hard disagree.
If we do that show, I'm going to invite you on, because I have one of my old co-hosts on on another podcast I did, which is my girlfriend's best friend, is obsessed with Death Proof, and she's obsessed with Tarantino. Period. Her favorite film is Pulp Fiction. Death Proof is probably her second favorite film of all time, because she says it's the most overlooked Tarantino film. So
fascinating movie.
Yeah, so we're definitely gonna get you on that one.
All right, I'm in.
Since you took Brad Pitt, I will go with Tarantino, and it just feels like everything worked for him in this. His love of movies somehow made this fairy tale feel real and come to life. It threw us into this world and made us enjoy 1969 Hollywood. And even though the Manson family was lurking the entire time, you were still locked in and thrilled and just happy to be a part of this era. Some things went right for him that he could have never expected. Something I love in this is that this is Luke Perry's final performance. You get to see Luke Perry before he died. And even though he's barely in the film, he's great in the one moment he is in. And it's just nice to see him one last time before he passed away. So many of the other great, he took so many actors' kids and threw them into this film. People like
Wilbur Willis, Harley Quinn Smith.
Hawk.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then Mark Qualley. There's so many that are thrown into this film because he just loves movies so much, loves movie stars, and these are the future stars right here, and we're going to throw them into this film. And I just think everything worked for Tarantino. And I know, Jader, like you said, you walked out of this saying it's not his best, but it's really good. I feel like this movie is going to be the one that gets better with every single viewing. And eventually,
even seeing it yesterday, I climbed a little bit on the Tarantino scale for me. I'm like, this is just such a great film.
And I just feel like it's going to keep crawling up. For a lot of people, you keep watching it, it's going to grow and grow in your estimation. That's what it's done for me personally. It wasn't my favorite walking up, but it was one of them. And now suddenly it's like number 2 for me. It's just there. And Tarantino knows what he's doing. You can see the years and years and years of work that he's had in this industry all just get better and better. Now, his latest film is one of his best. So I think Tarantino also won this movie, but so many people did, including us and including you guys. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to episode 46 of the Jader and Kyle Show. Great episode, everyone. Adam Witt, Paul Preston, the movie guys. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I hope you had a great time here.
Yeah, oh, we love talking movies.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. We skipped a Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates podcast and decided to come and talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So you're welcome.
I mean, that's a difficult choice right here, so I really appreciate that. Please, plug anything. You've got your podcast, the Showdown, whatever you want to say.
Paul, take it away.
Sure. Well, we have the movie guys have a podcast underway. It's called The Ford Fiesta. We are watching every Harrison Ford movie ever made and doing a show on each one. And we'll just get through them as we get through them. And we started with Dead Heat on Merry Ground. And did you know there's like 5 movies before he's in American Graffiti? What are they? Well, I think that makes for some of the most interesting shows we've done so far. I mean, our American Graffiti and Star Wars shows are good, but what are these old movies? We had a lot of fun with talking about them, and when he was under contract, just popping up in westerns and other random stuff. So that will go for the next year and a half, I imagine. While we just one.
I'll ask the panel here. What do you think is the first person that this is the sort of information that we uncover at the Ford Fiesta on the movie guys? Who do you think is the very first actor Harrison Ford punches on screen?
Oh man! Oh Jesus Christ!
Is it a famous actor?
Very
famous. Whoa. I will go with Steve McQueen.
Jack Lemmon.
Whoa. Holy shit, really?
Second feature film performance of Harrison Ford, he punches Jack Lemmon. And that's all he does in that movie.
He says, hey, and then he punches.
Hey! And that's it. He's out.
What's the movie called?
Love, L-U-V.
L-U-V.
Yeah.
I'm going to write that one.
67 or 8 back there.
67, 68. It's trying to be real, free love. It's got all the free love symbols and stuff, but it was clearly a play written in the early 50s. So.
Yeah. Next week, our American Graffiti episode will go up, and then Conversation Star Wars, and then we get another to a weird area with Heroes and Force 10 from Navarone and Hanover Street, and then it's off to the blockbusters.
And then we're really off and running.
Then after that, you get Crusade and Never Look Back.
Well, you'll have Raiders, Blade Runner. We'll probably cover E.T. He was there, and
he was there.
Witness and right on down. Working Girl.
Yeah.
It's gonna get
Cowboys and Aliens.
Everything else at the movie guys on social. I'm at P Preston LA as well, and Adam's at Adam_Witt, I believe, in most places.
Yes.
So follow our nonsense.
That was originally I was going to go with Adam the _Witt for my Schmodown name, but I decided it just didn't really carry much.
It doesn't roll off the tongue.
You guys have
TheMovieGuys.net for everything.
You guys have any matches coming up?
Yeah, my team's match is this Thursday, I believe. Airs this Thursday.
So,
right.
And I'm kicking off the Star Wars tournament against Zach Burkett this week as well.
Nice. Well, best of luck to you, gentlemen. I'm rooting for both of you.
Well, thank you.
Unless you're going against Den. But again, thank you guys so much for jumping on the show, man. It was a real treat to have you guys. Real treat to talk this film. I know Kyle is thanking you guys immensely because we have made him see a lot of cheesy 90s films for the last 4 weeks, and he is dying because he hates the 90s.
Oh, really?
We went from 95's Mortal Kombat to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That's such a massive leap in quality.
You're going to get whiplash.
It was you know what? We are for the people, and that's what
you're welcome.
Well, we started talking at the beginning of this about Speed 2, or that is 97. The late 90s are so fascinating. We didn't realize at the time just how oddball that latter part of the 90s decade would be. It's got its own rules. It's got its own thing. I mean, The Phantom Menace can't help but be a 99 movie. There's something a little Goldeneye or whatever movies were coming out at that time. There's something a little Event Horizon going on there. Yeah, it was
when in doubt, it came out in 99. That's what I tell everybody. But 99 was such a great. We actually do movie drafts. So if you guys want to come back on the show, we'll do just random. Like the next one we're gonna do is gonna be a best sports. but we want to pick either pick a year, a random year, and just pick either the worst of or the best of, and just
and just amass your team.
Exactly.
So what do? You got to pick one actor, one actress from a movie that year?
No. It's just we'll go by a decade. So the first show we
That's a great idea.
Best of 2014. I like that idea actually. We actually want to do one if you guys are actually be perfect for this show, where it's the biggest assholes on TV in cinema history.
Oh.
So and we can again we can talk about Uncle Frank from Home Alone. He's an asshole. Or
it definitely sucks.
Jenny Gump, So,
I mean,
Jenny always comes up.
Yeah, Jenny Gump sucks.
Last year, I wrote an article about the '80s bad guys.
Right.
Not the worst ones, but just like Kent from Real Genius.
Real Genius.
Principal from what's his name from Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
Anything Rickman did.
Yeah, and he's also the jerk in Die Hard.
Die Hard. The original Die Hard. Yeah, absolutely.
Paul Gleason, but the
Paul Gleason.
Yeah.
Carrie always had a run of being the dick there. He was the father in Liar Liar that we didn't want to. He sucked in that. He
was
played like
Dick.
Yeah, Twister Dick.
There you go, man. So we'll come up with something, and hopefully we can have you guys back on one of the draft episodes for sure.
All right, let us know.
Yeah, no, you guys were a pleasure to have on the show. I just got to say, one of my favorite moments of the show was Paul saying Adam will see anything that there's 5 of. I think
there's a video.
True.
There's a video on our YouTube page where he explains that whole theory, but he will.
You should put that on your profile. If there's 5 of anything, I'm going to see it.
I think Fast 5 came out, because he did it a while ago, but it's like, you know what, these movies look dumb, but now that there's 5 of them, I think I got to go see what's going on a minute.
Now there's a story they're telling, as though they sat down Friday the 13th 1 through 6 and are like, okay, and then in the 6th one we'll have him buried and he'll come back to life. No, but I just love that the awkward mythology of non-pre-thought out sequels.
Did you hear that Fast 9 is over 3 hours long?
Stop.
I promise you, they're clocking in. I think it's like 3 hours and 15 minutes or something like that.
I will tell you, that
Uh-huh.
trailer is action packed, though. Jesus.
Oh yeah, no, I know. I can't wait for it. I'm here for all the cheese.
Someone brought up something last week. I think maybe Paul on the Ford Fiesta. There was a movie that was originally 3.5 hours long, right? The original cut was 3.5 hours long, and I realized, and then it came up like 2 more times in the last week. Every movie was at one time 3.5 hours long. I think there's a big trick there, but you hear that all the time. It's like, oh, did you know at one time that movie was 3.5 hours long? Yeah, it's called a rough cut. Rough cuts are 3.5 hours long.
We interviewed Paul Hirsch. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles was 3.5 hours long.
I've heard that stat over and over, and suddenly I realized, I'm like, oh, you're talking about rough cuts. Yeah, all rough cuts are 3.5 hours long. Certainly when you don't cut anything out. Yeah.
That's another show.
That's a whole other stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
But Paul, Adam, thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone in the comments for joining along. Please tune into our other shows here. As Jader mentioned earlier, the wrestling show, Just Too Sweet. Put in the books, the Mets show, Just Stomped You Out, the Giants show. And then there's a bunch of other stuff.
Granny Speech Tea. I'm always going to shout those guys out. Granny Speech Tea. Anything comic book related, jump on that show. It is fantastic.
And the A to Z show with Eric. That's another great one, too. So
Mets, like the baseball team, the Mets?
Yeah, this is our website is sports and movies. So
yeah, but the Mets.
We didn't make
I don't blame you. I don't blame you whatsoever.
They're in first, so they're doing something magical over the podcast.
Paul, you can't control if the Angels are good.
I know they're thinking like a stone. They're down to 500, but I'm going next week, and my presence usually is a good mojo for the team.
Oh, good.
Flip the switch.
There you go.
I can't wait to make it to a baseball game again. We're going to get to do that again, aren't we?
Yeah, next Thursday, man. I'm going to go see Trout and Ohtani. It'll be fun.
There you go.
I got to get vaccinated, man.
That's a great note to end on, guys. And thank you so much. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Jader and Kyle